TikTok ads is one of the newer advertising platforms to us. And by new, I mean that as recently as a year ago, most people couldn't get into the platform. I know I couldn't. So odds are if you're watching this video, or just in general, you probably don't know all the targeting options that are available on TikTok. The good news is that some of them, like lookalike audiences and interest targeting, are going to feel really similar to a lot of the other platforms that we already use, like Facebook and Google and LinkedIn, all of those other ones. But there are some that are unique to TikTok, like some behavior targeting and some other pieces that are in there. So in this video, I'm going to go through all the different targeting options you have available in a TikTok ads campaign. All of the targeting for a TikTok ad campaign lives at the ad group level. So I've gone ahead and created a placeholder campaign. We're in a placeholder ad group and it's got this terrible number name that's already associated with it. And I'm going to skip over anything that's not based on a targeting option. So if you see something that's in here that you wanted me to cover, I'll probably be covering it in a future video. Just a heads up. The first type of targeting that we come across in the ad group setup is going to be around the placements that we can target on the TikTok network. You can see here that TikTok sets you up for automatic placement, but you can choose select placement. And when I do that, it's going to open up this checkbox system that effectively shows you the 4 different apps that are part of the TikTok network. There's TikTok itself, and then there are 3 additional apps that have different reach depending on different countries. As you can see, the third one down, advertising is only currently available in India. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that the targeting options for placements, as well as different countries on TikTok, can be relatively limited based on where your account is located. So I'm going to hop into a help article really quick because I want to show you how these different app placements and your country targeting will be impacted based on where you've set up your campaigns. The best part of this help article is this table down below. It says the following table shows the targeting options that are available for TikTok and the additional placements based on the registered country or region of the ad account. So basically what we want to do is think about where your ad account is registered. Mine is registered in the United States. So I'm going to look at this first line here. If you're registered in Australia or registered in the United Kingdom, you would start looking at these individual lines. You can then see which countries and platforms you can target based on the additional 3 columns in this table. So for the United States, on TikTok, I can target the US and Canada, Japan, and a number of other countries. For the secondary and third placements, there are different countries listed in here as well. But you'll notice that I can only target the US and Canada and any of the countries here. Since my account is based from the United States, I cannot target Australia, the United Kingdom, France, any of those additional countries. So if you were looking to have an international reach and you're based in the United States, that international reach is going to be limited based on the countries that you find in this table. So before you set up an ad account, before you promise something to a client, make sure that you actually can reach the target audience that they want based on the countries that are listed here. One key takeaway for our placement targeting is that the only place that the US and Canada show up for my targeting is on TikTok. The other platforms are not showing up. And even in the previous screen that we saw, it said that that placement was only available for India. So even if I choose automatic placements, I'm still only going to show up on TikTok. But it is very important that you know which countries can support which platforms before you opt into automatic or select placement targeting. If you decide that you do or don't want to be included on a certain platform, you can come in here and just uncheck the boxes next to them, and you would show up only on the TikTok and Newsfeed app series apps. For the sake of this video, just to keep things simple, I'm just going to revert back to automatic placements. Now, like I said, I'm going to skip past anything that's not around targeting, so sorry for those other things. But we're going to jump down to the actual targeting section, and this is going to be where we're going to spend the rest of our time in this demo. The first section we have here is going to be based on audiences, and these are the types of audiences that we can build just in the same way we can build retargeting campaigns, customer uploads on any of the other platforms. If you already have audiences built, you can either include them or exclude them based on a drop-down list. But since this is just a placeholder account, I don't actually have any listed already. So I'm going to go ahead and create new and hop into TikTok's audience manager. This should, again, look relatively familiar even if you haven't been in TikTok before. It is set up like a lot of the other platforms that we've used in the past. So we can come in here and create an audience, and there are 2 different types. You can create either a custom audience or a lookalike. So let's go in that order. Let's start with a custom audience. I'm not going to get too far into this because otherwise this video will be way too long, but there are 4 basic types of custom audiences you can build on TikTok. You can upload customer user information to create a customer file, just like you would with any of the other platforms we have. You can create an engagement campaign based on the list of people who saw, clicked, or engaged with your content on the TikTok platform. You can create an audience of users who've engaged with your app in one way, shape, or form, whether they've downloaded it, taken specific actions, or anybody who's made a purchase within your app. And then similarly, you can do the same types of audiences on the website traffic option, which is going to use the TikTok pixel to create lists of users who've engaged with your website or have taken specific actions. So depending on what type of audience you want to create, TikTok has you covered on the 4 basic categories that most platforms have, and probably gives you almost all the targeting options that you would want in an audience manager. You'll remember the second type of audience was going to be a lookalike, and those are going to be based on those custom audiences. Because we don't have a custom audience set up in this account, I'm just going to go through the high-level points of this lookalike audience creation process. Just like we would with Facebook or LinkedIn, the first thing we need to do is choose the source, and that's going to be the custom audience that we want to create a lookalike of. Like I said, I don't have one created in here, so I'm actually just not going to click anything to try and make sure that we don't have any errors pop up. But this is where you would choose whatever custom audience, whether it was your custom upload, your engagement, app activity, or website traffic audience to create the lookalike off of. The next thing is around the contained source. This is a little bit different than a lot of the other platforms we have access to, but what this means is, do you want your custom audience to be omitted from the lookalike audience, or do you want it to be contained within the lookalike audience? So effectively, if you want to use this audience and to continue reaching the users in the custom audience that you use to create the lookalike, you would click contains. That way those users would still be in that audience. But if you want the lookalike audience to be a truly prospecting campaign for only net new users and not target any of the users that you had in your custom audience, you would leave the option as omit. This is going to be the type of option that most of the platforms have. They tend to have the omit section set up so that all lookalike audiences do not include the seed audience, and they're truly brand new prospecting users. You can then choose the system if you want to narrow down users between Android and iOS. You can then choose the different placements, which we just talked about. It's going to be based on the different apps that are there. You can then also choose the location, which is going to be the country that you want to use this audience in. The last thing is going to be the closest translation to Facebook's percentage model that we have for TikTok. This audience size section is going to talk about how broad or how narrow, I'm using their terms here, you want your lookalike to be off of that custom audience. Balanced is going to be the most basic fundamental setup, but if you want it to have a very specific focus and try and focus only on those who are very, very similar to your custom audience, you could choose narrow, or if you're willing to be a little bit more broad and let the machine do a little bit more learning for you, you can choose that broad option as well. You would then just give it a name and click confirm, and you would hop back into the ad group section to add that audience to your targeting options in the TikTok ad group. The next set of targeting we have is going to be around demographic information, and this is going to go pretty quick. This is very similar to what we've seen on a lot of other platforms. First thing you can do is choose your location targeting, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, how there are some limitations for TikTok based on where your account is registered. Mine defaulted to United States. I can then click the drop down. You'll see that Canada shows up, as well as all of the other countries that were listed in that table, but nothing outside of that is going to be eligible. I cannot target a lot of countries in Europe that a lot of my clients currently do target through a lot of other platforms. Make sure that you have all of the different targeting set up and your account is registered in such a place that you can reach the audience based on the country that you're trying to target. If you want to narrow your focus within the United States, you can click the little arrow next to the name, and you can have a checkbox for each of the individual states, but that's pretty much it. There's no further targeting options geographic-wise, location-wise, on TikTok. Next, we've got some pretty easy options here for gender. You can either have no limit, you can target just males or just females, and then you can have different age ranges. This is going to be a little bit more similar to the Google platform, where you have to choose between a certain age range of 13 to 17, 18 to 24, and so on and so forth. We don't have the ability to create very custom age ranges like we do on Facebook, but we've still got a pretty wide range of users here. Lastly, you can choose the language that you want to target. Again, this is going to have a drop down, so choose which one is going to make the most sense for you based on the audience that you're trying to reach, and think about how they will engage on their phone and how they will engage with TikTok organically to make sure that you're reaching users in a language that they'll be able to understand and feel comfortable engaging with. Now, this next section I think is where some people get a little bit tripped up, and I'll admit I did too. Took a little bit of research to get there. I think part of it is because they didn't do as good a job as I would have liked creating different headers here. So you can see that there are kind of 4 different sections the way that you would initially read this. There's interest, behavior, category, and then there's different date ranges down here. But in reality, there's only 2 sections, so we'll talk about them separately. There's going to be interest, which really is just this one drop down here. But then all of these other options here live under behavior, so that's why this might be a little bit confusing. So the difference between these two is that interest is going to be based on longer term machine learning audiences and interests based on how people engage with the platform. Behaviors are going to be a bit more specific. These are going to be more recent actions, whether the 7 days or 15 days, that people have taken within specific categories of content on the TikTok app. So think of interests as long-term patterns of use, and behavior is going to be more recent patterns. So we can get into each of these. Let's start off with interest. These are going to be based on a drop-down preset list here. You can see that there's a lot of high-level pieces: apparel and accessories, appliances, apps, automobiles. I'm not going to go through each of these, there's going to be a ton, but you can also open up different categories here as well and see which types of things people are searching for. So let's just say I'm trying to find backpacks, for example. I can check the box here, and you can see that the targeting option says people who are interested in backpacks. Like I said earlier, interests are defined by data on long-term user engagement with in-app content. This has a pretty high audience size, so whether you think all of these people are actively interested in backpacks or not, that's your prerogative. But you can see that when we added this audience, the audience size adjusted over here, and TikTok does give you a similar gauge to what Facebook does, where it tries to tell you if something is too narrow, balanced, or too broad, just to make sure that you're sticking within what TikTok thinks are going to be the right audience sizes. You can also come down here to targeting summary if you want to make sure that you have this kind of at a glance, because as you can see here, we're only looking at interests and behavior. I can't see all of the other things that we have available, so you can keep that open if you want to. If you want to add additional interests to this, all you have to do is have the same process here, and you can just check the box next to as many as you want, and as soon as you do, TikTok will update the audiences that you have in here. If you decide you want to get rid of one of them, you can click the X next to it, or you can click clear all to go back basically to the start. The behavior targeting options requires a little bit more work here because we're trying to target users who have taken specific actions within specific categories within either the last 7 or 15 days. So the first thing I want you to think about is which type of actions do you want someone to have taken? Do you want them to have watched a video to the end, to have liked the content, to have commented on it, to have shared it, or any combination of these? You can check a box for each of these different types of engagements and target them based on all of these different combinations of how they've engaged with the content on TikTok. You can then choose your category, which is going to be a relatively similar list to the interests that we had, but you'll see that there are a lot less options off the bat. So let's just open one up. We'll do creativity and leisure. You can see that there are a number of different options here: art, home and garden, life hacks, oddly satisfying, which I don't necessarily know what that means, and I'm afraid to click on it. But let's just say drawing and painting. So now our behavior targeting here is going to be trying to target users who have watched a video to the end, liked, commented, or shared something in the drawing and painting category on TikTok. We can then choose if we want it to be the last 7 days or the last 15 days. So for now, let's just say last 15 days. So we'll target anybody who has taken any of these actions on a drawing and painting category within the last 2 weeks. So you can see here how behavior targeting is not only going to be more behavior driven, hence the name, but it's also going to be a lot more recent. You can find people who have recently been engaging with this type of content, not just somebody who's engaged with this content over the past 365 days. So there's a lot of powerful behavior targeting that you can have here. The last thing for this section is that you can combine the behavior and interest targeting, but you cannot make it into an and statement. TikTok does allow you to add an interest, so let's go ahead and add in the backpack interest. Before I do that, you can see that my target audience size is 20.4 million to 24.9 million over on the right. If I check the box next to backpacks, it's now going to recalculate and my audience got bigger, meaning that this between the interests and behaviors is going to be an or type of targeting. There's not a way for you to say, I want somebody who's interested in backpacks and has taken one of these behaviors in the past 15 days. Unfortunately, this is only going to be an or targeting. Rather than having these layered into the same ad groups, I would encourage you to make sure that you have everything separate so you'll know what's performing and what's not, rather than having them combined. For now, I'm just going to clear this out. And the last set of targeting we have is going to be around the specific devices that people can use on TikTok. A lot of these are going to be pretty simple. We can choose the operating system, whether it's no limit, which means all users, or Android versus iOS. You can then choose different operating system versions. If your app or website, whatever it is, needs to have some sort of support level, you can choose anywhere from Android 4.0 and above. And if you scroll down, you'll see the iOS is 8.0 or above, and it goes all the way up to the 14.5 that's out recently. So depending on what you need to have there, make sure that the platform can support whatever you're trying to send users to. Next, you can choose between multiple different connection types. Do you want people to be able to connect anywhere on whatever platform they have? Or do you want them to only connect on Wi-Fi, 2G, 3G, 4G? You'll notice that 5G isn't here. My guess is that it will come down at some point. But if you say that you want to target only people who are on Wi-Fi or 4G, you can select any different combination of these different types of connections just to make sure that you're reaching the right users. You don't have to pick just one for each ad set. Next, you can choose the different carriers that you want. So there's a pretty short list of these because we're trying to target the United States. We've got AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, or Verizon. So you can choose any combination of these. Let's say we want AT&T and Sprint. You'll see that they've kind of truncated the second option there, but you can choose any different combination of those carriers. And then if you want, you can just clear it out and they'll go back to no limit. And then the very last thing is going to be on device price. And this is a fairly unique type of targeting, to be quite honest. This is going to be based on, just as it's named, the price of the device that somebody is using. So if you want to target people who only have really expensive phones, you can do that. The range goes anywhere from $0 on the low end all the way up to $1,000 plus on this side. So if for some reason you want to target people who only have a phone that is less than $800, you can target those users. But a lot of the phones nowadays are going to be pretty close to $1,000 plus. To be quite honest, I'm not 100% sure why this is useful, but you have the option to do it if that is a use case that you might want. I'm going to set it back to no limit just for this example. And that pretty much covers all of the different targeting options that we have available in TikTok. This is not the most robust set of targeting, but as you can see with some of the device price and some of the different behavior targets, there are a lot of different options on this platform than there are on some of the other platforms that we have available. So hopefully this gives you a good rundown and gets you a good feel of the types of targeting options you can use on TikTok and make you confident in setting up your first campaign.
Thanks for watching our video. If you thought it was useful, give us a thumbs up below.
We release a new video at least once a week, so if you want to get notified of when a new one comes out, be sure to subscribe to the Paid Media Pros channel.